You're about to watch Greg Baerg talk about how he uses Power BI to help specialty coffee companies improve their operations and deliver great tasting coffee to their customers. Greg is a member of our Power BI consultant program, and he presented this session at the recent Worldwide Power BI conference. As you enjoy this presentation, I want you to remember that Greg started perhaps where you are right now, possibly had the same fears and doubts that you may have. The key is, he didn't let that stop him from helping others and making an impact. That's what makes Greg a Power BI Pro.
We'll dive right in. So also want to say thanks to Josh for joining us. He's on the call here, and we'll make some introductions in a minute. So we're going to dive right in. So thanks for joining us today. Excited to be here and excited to talk about some of the work we've done together. So I wanted to start with a quick poll. You can think about this morning if you want, and just type in the chat, which one are you? I'll go first. I would put myself in the amateur boat. Sometimes here in Canada, we're drinking Tim Hortons mostly. But lately I've been drinking tea in the morning. I'd love to hear from you in the chat. And how about you, Avi and Josh?
Yeah, the best I can manage is a chocolate smoothie. Josh, I'm expecting like a good answer from you.
He's put me right on the spot here. The most embarrassing thing for me is that I drink tea in the morning. I don't even drink coffee till I get to the office. So I usually have about 500 ml of tea in the morning. It gets me out of bed, and then coffee when I get to work.
Hey, but you are British though. I think we can excuse you. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Just wanted to jump into the talk. So we're going to be talking about specialty coffee and Big Wave BI and the work we've done together, Josh and I. We'll introduce ourselves in a minute. We called this webinar Riding the Fifth Wave. And so for those of you with a coffee background, there was the third wave of coffee. It was a wave that focused on quality and flavor and quality of roasting. And then in the last 5 to 10 years, there was a fourth wave. And so there was a focus there on processing at the farm level and just improving quality even more. And then now we're finding ourselves, in the fifth wave, we're calling it, just with a big wave of data analytics and IoT. We're seeing it in some of the machines that are coming out, and even just companies becoming more aware of their data. Just regardless of the size of the business. So we're in an exciting time in the industry. I wanted to ask another question here in the chat. I see there's a lot of responses here. Just wanted to ask, how many fires do you put out on your way to the office every morning? That's usually when they hit first thing in the morning. Whether you are a business owner, management. I know that when I worked as a project manager in the aerospace industry, I'd think about all the problems on the way to work that I had to deal with. There was never enough time in the day. We operated in a world of constant deadlines, and it just seemed like there was never enough time in the day. So I'd love to hear from you, just what your mornings are like and how much, how many problems you're dealing with every day. So again, a bit more about me here. So I was a project manager for 20 years in aerospace industry. I live in Chilliwack, BC. It's on the map there, the blue dot, up in the west coast of Canada. A beautiful area to live, lakes and mountains and lots of camping nearby, and just a beautiful spot. I'm married with 5 kids, and I love working with Power BI. It was in that role as a project manager that I discovered Power BI. And really, automation was a key to my growth and success there. When I discovered Power BI, I kind of became the go-to guy in the office for that. And it was with all the deadlines and pressures, it became the tool that really freed me and released me to do more and work proactively there. So, and then started my own business about 2 years ago now, and worked with various industries, retail, food and beverage, manufacturing, construction, healthcare, and work with a network of consulting Power BI specialists, and whether it be finance, project management, e-commerce, or making custom connectors. So little bit I'll turn it over to Josh. Josh and I worked together over a year ago, and or we first met over a year ago. He's That's the director of coffee over at Clifton Coffee Roasters in Bristol, UK, and I'll let you take it over there. From there.
Yes. So my title is director of coffee. I'm still trying to work out what it entails, because it seems to cover all aspects of a coffee business. But we're a specialty coffee roastery that have been going almost 20 years. I had a slight experience in manufacturing. My dad's a manufacturing engineer, so I sort of brought that vision and maybe a little bit into specialty coffee. But really fell in love with coffee when I was at university, and just I've been in the industry now for 11 years. I specialize in sensory when it comes to coffee. So I love tasting coffee. I travel the world to source coffee. And yeah, really I've been able to just ride this wave that the industry's been growing. Coffee's becoming more and more popular. People wanting more coffee. They want to know more about their coffee. And as a business, we're just trying to give people the best possible experience, whether that be in product, customer service, and experience, really.
That's awesome. Thanks, Josh. I'm just catching up in the chat here. I love it. I've got Ian with the Tim Hortons. I'm going back to the previous poll, sorry. And there's Eric was wanting you to chat with James Hoffman about your tea drinking in the morning. So I'd like to get on that. So just moving through it. So there's a little snippet of some of the work we did together. So just wanted to show a preview of that. We built quite a few dashboards, more than this even together. But there was one that was particularly impactful, and that was the dashboard for the roastery. So, again, I've been around manufacturing and coffee now for a while, and I've worked with quite a few business leaders, financial leaders, whether it be CEOs, directors, business leaders in these industries, and I'm learning what they get passionate about. A little bit of, as Josh talked there, you could hear just the excitement about what he does, and so some of the things, unlocking new markets, new rows, optimizing the batch sizes, and just the whole story from crop to cup. I hear that quite a bit, and just doing that as smartly and efficiently as you can. And we were chatting the other day, Josh, and just the desire to take something really complex and take it to the everyday coffee drinker. So just hearing that, those are some of the things that get them out of bed. And then there are challenges for sure. So what keeps them up at night? So Avi mentioned supply chain. So supply chain disruptions has been a big thing this year. Losing customers or contracts, COVID issues. So furlough, whether it be staffing turnover or recruitment, and then on-time delivery, just making sure you're delivering on time. So it's difficult to sit down and make strategic decisions. I think what's really driving a lot of this is, it's difficult to access our data in one place. There's different versions of the reports floating around, which creates confusion. And then, part of the COVID effect, we saw a strong shift to online sales, subscription sales. So just that lack of a robust reporting structure there, was a challenge initially. So, and again, like, can you trust the numbers, or not able to make data-driven decisions quickly? So yeah, I'd love to hear from those of you in the chat some more, like, if you're facing some of these challenges in your role. And I'll turn it over to Josh. Did I cover that well, or is there anything else you'd add?
Yeah, I think you summarized it for us really well. I think the coffee industry, I said I've been in it 11 years now, and I've gone from, pot washing in a coffee shop through to now heading up a global sourcing program. And I'm really still just scratching the surface when it comes to understanding coffee, the complexity around supply chains, the different intricacies around different countries, how we then bring that coffee into the UK. And then every borough in the UK seemed to have their own different rules last year when we hit the pandemic as well. So where you could travel, where you couldn't, which coffee shops were open. And I think the challenges for us is, we were a small team when I joined. I joined Clifton Coffee 7 years ago, and there were 12 employees. We'd meet in the morning for a coffee. We'd come up with a plan for the day, and we'd go off and work. We now have 35 employees. We supply 1,000 coffee shops. So when the pandemic hit, we got to a stage where it's like, cool, what do we do now? How do we understand what's going on in our business quickly? How can we make strategic decisions using our data? How much commodity have we got moving across the UK? How do we understand where that is? Who's got the best reports? Everybody's sifting through CSV files, trying to find the most recent download. And like, I think that first question you asked, how many fires do you put out? I don't know what everybody else's commute is like, but I have a 45 minute commute to work. And usually that's when my working day starts. I get on the phone, I speak to different people in different departments and find out what's going on. And they are the challenges, really. That's what I've found myself reflecting over the last year of what do I spend my time doing? What absorbs most of my time? And more often than not, these are the biggest challenges that I have. And then, that sort of age-old question, right, Greg, of can I trust the numbers?
Absolutely, yeah. Anthony's saying my commute is from the bedroom to the kitchen to the study. That's a lot of us these days, and I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, regardless of the challenges, and I see two types of business leaders, and there's those that are treading water. So they're either making decisions using their gut, and they'll either be lucky or they'll be wrong. These people are spending a lot of time manually prepping the data, and they're the ones spending these last panicky moments before a supplier meeting prepping the data, or they were spending a lot of time late into the evening the night before, not sure if they missed anything, and stuck doing repetitive tasks, producing same reports every week, every month, every quarter. Oftentimes they're spending hours in Microsoft Excel, and feel that there has to be a more efficient way to eliminate these tasks. And I would say some of them suspect there's a faster way to do things, but they just don't know any better. They've never had time to fully dig in. And then the other type, those that are dialed in, and these are a lot of the people that are on the journey. Sorry, there's a lot of people that I work with that are on this journey, I should say. They've got the same big mission, same challenges, but they're invested in putting systems in place. And, now their processing power, their time can be invested into, solving challenges, strategic problems. So they're proactive rather than reactive. They're in tune with what's happening with the business. And now they're in a position to stop fires before they even start. So, with Power BI, you get strategic reporting, and it's possible, and it lets them do everything else better. So, again, love to hear from people. Where do you think you are at in this journey? I'd love to hear from everyone. So, supply from Benjamin here. This is amazing. Supply and efficiency would be our big ones in the coffee company I'm involved with. That's awesome. What about you, Josh? Anything you would add there?
Yeah, I think just as I mentioned when we first got introduced to each other through Avi, I think straddling both at some times. I see someone's just written that there's times where I feel in control, but the majority of the time it sort of feels like I'm treading water. I'm constantly juggling multiple departments with different decisions, and very much reacting to problems as they arrive. And we've always had this mantra that, we want to be proactive as a business rather than reactive. We want to be setting these trends. We want to make that attractive for our customers. But we were looking internally, and things were just becoming harder as we were growing as a business. It was becoming more difficult to maintain that sort of lean structure, to be dialed in. So I think when we started this process, I would say I was treading water. I didn't have much time for processing power. My mind was caught up with the doing rather than the thinking. And it's the thinking that gets me really excited about my job, having that time to look up, look around, see what's going on, and then perform proactive decisions, or even just trying something new as well. And innovative is really what our industry is about. So I'd like to say that as a business, it's a coffee term, so I love it. We're dialed in.
That's awesome. Okay. Going to jump into a little bit about the story. So it was early 2020 that we started working together, got connected through Avi. So Clifton was just coming off the back of integrating Teams into their business. They were early adopter of Teams. There's a case study on Microsoft's website about some of their work there with another Microsoft partner, Changing Social in the UK there. And so we worked together. We started together. We worked about 3 weeks together, building out a small proof of concept. And we built a couple simple reports. They were connected to some CSV exports from their system. And even through those 3 weeks, it was really exciting just to start getting an overall picture of the business and really seeing the possibilities. I think that was the big thing. And one of the reports we initially looked at was a simple roastery report. So there's a picture of the roastery. There's their head roaster, Tim, in the back and on the far right. Yeah, and I've just been excited even to hear of the ways they've been improving processes over the past year, not just through the dashboards, but you guys have been doing a lot of lean implementation there and just continuous improvement initiatives in the roastery. So it's been just really exciting to hear this. When we first started working together, from what I was hearing from you, it was a very manual process to build the roast schedule for the week or even for the day. In the morning, you guys would get together and have a stack of orders, it sounded like, and just have to make sense of it. And, printing off multiple copies for the upstairs and the downstairs, meeting downstairs every morning at 10, and just doing the calculations on the spot to see what you need to produce for the day. I would say it sounded like it was really difficult to see the big picture and plan proactively there. This year, one of the initial things we looked at during that time was where their data was coming from, and then just think about the questions that Josh was asking on a regular basis. So, and seeking from these various systems. In Clifton's case, I could see your frustration, Josh, just having to extract from multiple systems and CSV files, just to refresh a monthly report like this one we're looking at here. Copy pasting, consolidating in Excel, creating pivot tables and things like that. So, another thing was, and it's pretty common actually, is that the actuals and the budgets were coming from totally different places. So budgets were Excel files, and then the actuals were coming from Sage 50 in their case. That's a pretty common scenario, combining actuals from multiple different systems. And again, I'd love to hear from anybody in the chat. Like, have you experienced any of that? Love to hear from you, and maybe Josh, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've spoken a bit about and looking back now, I've been able to laugh at, is that one of the reasons that we had 2 desktop monitors in our office was because we were looking at multiple data sets, different sources. So I could have one spreadsheet up on one side, trying to export CSVs, and then something else elsewhere. And I was spending the majority of the time just consolidating these reports. I think, this table, this spreadsheet that you can see here was sort of my greatest work at the time. I was so proud of it, but it would take hours. And it was really laborsome, and it was becoming more and more problematic. I guess because the more data you're presented with, the more questions you tend to ask. And that was just becoming more of a burden than it was a success for us. So I think there's a slide later on where you've got that sort of wheel of the doom that I used to call it. I was just waiting for reports to download, so I could try and make sense of them to get, we think in our industry that because we use weighing scales to make coffee that we're scientists. It's so far from the truth. So it's nice to keep this element of craft, artisan that sticks with coffee, but use all this information now to help us understand it more.
That's awesome. Yeah. Eric there in the chat, he's saying they use forecasts in Excel, actuals from Sage 500. Yeah. And Benjamin, can resonate with that. That's awesome. Wheel of Doom, we'll come to that slide. So the first thing we did was Josh sent me just a handful of exports from their system. And so these were just Excel exports from Sage, and then a couple of static files. So in Power BI, using Power Query, we built a simple data model. So We added a calendar table and created some measures. One thing through this process that we discovered was there's a lot of back and forth in data cleanup. We discovered a particular field in Sage wasn't being used, but we really needed that to be, just being used consistently so that it would yield a good result in the dashboard. So there's a lot of back and forth and cleanup activity out of this process, which was really good. And then we created laying out some visuals and created a simple report. And this was, I think, it had the makings of a roastery report, and it was, I think, honestly, that it was just really rewarding to start seeing the data in one place and just what the possibilities would be. But at this point, it was still static, just static files that were exported out of the system. And so, we took a break for about 6 months. And when things picked up again, then we started working together again. So the goal when we met then was to further develop the dashboards. And the big thing was establishing connections to all you guys' main data sources, whether it be Sage, WooCommerce, Cropster. Those were probably the big ones for you. And our goal was to publish these reports and have them available in Teams, particularly, and mobile reports on this mobile, and then have it all automatically refresh. So that was the goal. And so we started looking at it. So I think, again, we started looking at where their data was coming from. These were the 3 big ones. There's the wheel of doom, you call it. So sometimes you were waiting there in the top left corner, I don't know, 5 minutes for a report to run.
And depends how many people were logged in at the same time trying to do things.
Yeah, totally. Rakesh, you've definitely been at the wheel of doom waiting for VLOOKUPs to complete on Excel. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, we had sales and inventory coming from 3 different systems. So sales were coming in from Sage and WooCommerce. So WooCommerce being the back end of their online subscription platform. And then the inventory and stock on hand in Cropster. So in and of itself, these tools all had their own reporting, modules, and some better than others. But they were all in 3 different places. And just a quick analogy, whenever I drive by a construction site, I think I'm always amazed how much time they spend, under the ground. We have a 4-story apartment going up down the road, and I think they spent over a year just doing the site prep, excavating, laying out the forms, and pouring the concrete. And for this project, in a similar way, we had to do a fair share of that type of prep work before we could start building our reports. So we mapped it out. One of the first things we had to do is map it out. We looked at all of our options to connect to Sage and WooCommerce and Cropster, and we planned for an automatic refresh to PowerBI.com. You can see it on the map there, using a data gateway up at the top left. And again, the goal was to consume the reports in Teams and the mobile reports. And by the way, special thanks to Frank Van Delden, who helped me create this in PowerPoint workflow diagram. So I thought this showed a pretty good view here. The kind of the process, all the groundwork is the connections, the data flows, the central data model. Really, at the end, at the far right, is the reports, which is what the user consumes. But we had to do all that prep work. So starting with the connections, this is the lineage view in PowerBI.com, and just shows what we ended up creating. Shows all that prep work. So yeah, the first thing we have to do is create our connections to these data sources. For Sage, what we ended up doing, we explored a few different methods. We ended up using an ODBC connector and just creating a SQL statement that pulled the relevant fields. Then we saved these queries in a data flow entity. I think that's called something else now, data flow tables or queries, I forget. But they were called entities. And then we set up an automatic refresh on the data flows. So that was for Sage. And then for WooCommerce, again, we explored a lot here. So we ended up creating a Python script that would make an API call to the WooCommerce API with pagination. And then we set it up so that it would dump the data out as a JSON file and save it automatically to SharePoint. So that was all automated, running on a daily schedule. And then from there, we would, again, pull it into a data flow entity. And so then, so we had Sage data, we had WooCommerce data stage. And I think, just by the way, speaking of APIs here, we tried quite a few options, particularly, so for connecting APIs, particularly with the OAuth 2 authentication, two-factor authentication, was a little bit challenging connecting directly in Power Query. Power Automate was a lot better, but it just felt like Python, writing a Python script and exporting to JSON was sort of the leanest way to go. And by the way, if there in the chat, if there are, there's many ways to do this, and I'd love to hear if anyone has any other suggestions. But that's what we landed on. And then for Cropster, we had to apply and just get permission to get access to the API. And for this one, initially we had it with a similar Python script, but put a fair bit of work into learning how to build custom connectors, and in the end we did it. And I had help with that, and one of my team members who's done a phenomenal job, she helped me build that. So that's in place and has a lot of future possibilities. So that was the connections and the data flows. And then I should say at this point, the data flows were set up each with a different refresh schedule. We were very interested in seeing this on an hourly basis, the information out of Sage. And then some of the static files, obviously some of them never, maybe once a month need a refresh. I think we ended up doing it once every day, but we had it on a different scheduled refresh. And then the model itself was being refreshed totally independent. It was set up to refresh after these would run on a hourly basis, I believe. So as far as the central data model, building this out, again, we're still doing prep work here. It was just a Power BI file with all our queries that were then, these are all tables that were pulled from the data flows. So that's what it looked like in the front end. And then just the model view, quite a few tables all pulled together with a central calendar table. And then we finally got to the reports, kind of the fun stuff of kind of pulling this all together. And I think this was a big moment here. We were working on this roastery report, and it was just incredible to pull together for the first time, Sage and Cropster data side by side. I know if you've worked with Power BI, whether it be a month or years, in and of itself, this isn't a huge deal. I think we pull together files all the time, but it just felt like kind of the journey of getting it all, the connectors and the data flows and the model, and then just finally seeing it side by side. It was just fantastic. And again, you really start to think about the possibilities. And so we springboarded off that initial version and started to build off the earlier work and just put this together in another iteration. So here we built a tool here that would allow the roastery to plan their production schedule for the day. So the idea was basically to clear the reds. You would come in every day, and any of these fields that are red, these are the different profiles. And so these are separate batches, they all have different batch sizes that are just, this is a number that they use. So here, this is, you come in the morning and you've only got 10 on hand, 10 kilograms. We working with Josh, we predetermined what his ideal min and max would be, and then kind of the target, the ideal amount to have on hand would be 40 in this case. So here, using this slider or typing in manually, we could, increment it by 30 until we hit the target. So by, in this case, adding 30 for the day would take us up to 40, and then we would meet our target. We would be on track for that particular profile. And it would build a production schedule. So you could see here by category what what your plan was for the day. And I'll let you fill in some of the gaps after, Josh. Another report, this would be kind of the final iteration. This is fake data, so this is more or less what the final version looks like right now. So yeah, you can bring together the actual sales versus, you can see quantities on hand. And I think, let's just jump over to the actual Power BI file here. So in this case, Josh, I will have you speak through just how you guys use it. I'd love to hear from you.
So that first connection for us to be able to see Sage data and Cropster data in one place was great. It probably saved me 40 minutes alone just each day to get that information together. And then for us to be able to build this out where we were able to connect all the sort of on this dashboard, all the different customers with their icons and the logos on the left. So you can see how easy it is to just click into a customer, slice and dice it there and then, and see what that customer is doing. How much coffee are they producing? Are they open or closed at the time? What are the trends for that? Have we got enough coffee moving from a supply and green coffee side of things to be able to get it in store ready to roast? What is the trend of this customer? Maybe they need some training if their sales were dropping down. Is it because they are struggling with staff at the moment? It's not just the logistics and supply chains issues here. There's a huge workforce issue in the UK. And we provide that full level. It's not just coffee. We provide training as well. So I think this was amazing for us to just all dip in and have answers to hand. We used to find ourselves asking a question and then saying, okay, we don't have the answer. Let's go away. Let's run some reports and we'll meet back in 30 minutes. It was like Scooby-Doo for those who used to watch that. We split up and search for clues and then we'll try and get back together and work on some answers. Whereas this means that, now we have everything to hand. I don't have to panic when I'm getting to a meeting or need to conduct a meeting or ask questions. I have the ability to just open this on my laptop or on my phone, and it's hourly updates. Some customers of our own customers only run maybe daily or weekly reports still. So I know more about their business than they do.
That's awesome. We can jump over to this other report. So again, like you can slice into a particular customer and just see the roast or the levels that they're ordering for the week.
I think week by week. Yeah. So when we started, we wanted to zoom all the way out and see just on a macro level what was going on, but have the power to just drill down layer on layer. So this takes it down to, for what our head roasters are used, to be able to go through each customer and see week by week, how is that going to affect how much coffee we roast this week? How many staff members do I need to produce this coffee and put it into bags? How do I plan my roast schedule? How can we reduce the number of batches? The price of gas has gone crazy. How can we use less gas to roast? How can we optimize the flavors? We're in constant pursuit of trying to get the best possible cup of coffee. So it just made logical sense to be able to use and access all this data. And we were being made more aware of our data as we were asking it more questions as well. I couldn't believe a small business that we were producing so much data. And I think, you giving us the power to dial in there was brilliant.
That's awesome. I was just thinking back to your earlier comment about knowing more than your suppliers do in some cases. I'd love to hear. I know you've told me a few stories about that. Do you have any that you could share here?
Yeah, I think we've always had this idea of our future state as a business, where we're in fifth gear, we're just cruising and everything feels, I guess, effortless. We've mentioned that we want to free up our processing power so we can think. But I think also fundamentally in the coffee industry, we get into it because we love having a cup of coffee. We love talking to people. Let's make some great coffee and let's just have a chat. And I think that's been great with our customer relations, that we're not spending hours pulling together these reports to be able to have that conversation with them. We've been able to get to a point where we can even have a view of the future. So we're pulling this information in. I think the next slide is our most powerful yet. As I said, we had this idea that we wanted to see information as close to real time as possible, we got to hourly refreshes. Some customers only run a daily till report, and they'll process maybe how many cups of coffee they've sold at the end of that day. As orders are coming in for online customers or wholesale customers, we roast every day, so customers can receive multiple deliveries. It allowed us to just get these updates, what they've ordered in terms of roasted coffee before it had then even gone out through their till and that kind of thing. And yeah, the next slide I think is our best. We really wanted to get to a point where we could, I guess, almost predict the future. I know I sent you that really funny meme earlier today from the sort of Back to the Future. It's like, I've always wanted to see into the future. And as most coffee roasters, I don't know if there's anybody tuned in who has got a roastery here, but we run a subscription model. I think most coffee roasters run a subscription model. And in our website within WooCommerce, there was this spreadsheet that allowed us to see all of the orders that were going to be ahead of time that hadn't refreshed yet, but they were logged into our system. And we've been able to bring that in and now have a view of coffee that hasn't technically been processed through the website yet, or hasn't even been ordered for roast. And we can see exactly how much coffee is going to go out that day, how many orders, what type of coffee they want, how regularly that refreshes. So yeah, knowing what's going to happen before it happens just has allowed us to get ahead. We're further down the line than we were before, where we were just treading and reacting.
That's awesome. I was going to jump to that other slide. I quickly wanted to ask you, just before we talked about Tim and the roastery, how you used to do it, what does this give you the ability to do, I think, on this page here?
Yeah, so I think we used to have all the orders would be able to run up until 10 a.m. each day, and we would have to collate those orders from multiple sources, whether it was from Woo or telephone orders or email orders. We don't do fax. I know we'd be pretty old school with our data, but we drew a line there. And then we would just collate all of these orders. We'd physically, write down a tally of how much coffee had been ordered and how many batches does that relate to? And then we'd have to go and weigh out all of that coffee. And, if someone got an order through late, then we'd have to retally all the numbers. And it was just really laborsome. It wasn't smart. And this has allowed us to go back through any customer group or down to stock category and see exactly what's been ordered or what do we need to produce and what are the differences between the two, all in one place with a few clicks, whether that was on a phone really quick or at the desktop. And all the computers, the roasters have computers on them as well. So that integration with Teams for us as well meant that it was just all in one place. That, as I said, for me alone, saved 40 minutes a day.
That's awesome. Cool. I'll jump back into the next slide that you're talking about. So we talked about this one, and this would be the one here from. So basically, what Josh was saying earlier, we pulled together their subscription data from WooCommerce, and this is really the one that allows them to see the future. So again, you have your I'm going to just dive back into the report here. A little easier to click on it. Whoops, online sales. So you could pick a time frame, and these are your subscriptions. So number of subscriptions for the particular day, and you can see the hotspots for the week. And then the cool thing is you can drill into a particular day and just see the update here for what's going out at any particular day, by category or by
number of orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything I've missed on this one, Josh?
I think someone said in the comments earlier that they used to use Excel for their forecasts, and so did we. That's the only, how do you work out what you're going to buy or what you're going to produce if you don't know what that is? Well, the only way is by historical data and then trying to look at an increase or decrease and forecast the difference. This connector has allowed us to take actual orders that are sat in the algorithm within WooCommerce and see them before they come through. So, okay, yeah, of course, we had to look at our cancellation rate and look at the risks of being able to look so far ahead. But our cancellation rate was less than 2%. And this meant that we could then buy appropriately for each week if we wanted to. We could print labels and apply them to bags days ahead of time because we could see exactly how many orders, how long that would take to produce. And then also further ahead, then how we buy. Our subscription service allows drinkers, if they want, to get 52 different coffees a year. And this has really allowed us to just, it's that back to the future, see forward, see things that haven't even happened yet, and operate smoothly and efficiently as a result.
Nice. Cool. I just wanted to dive back to this slide here and just look back where we came from. So, we were definitely treading water, just reacting, before we started this whole process. And I know there's a lot of you out there that are likely still doing it this way. I know the pain. I know it's so hard to get yourself kind of out of that mode. It's hard when you have a full-time job and, how much time do I spend learning versus doing my actual job? And it's a really big challenge. And I know how much time that takes. But yeah, I just wanted to think about, it's Josh mentioned the time that he freed up, and even more than that, what is it that you can accomplish with that freed up time if you're not treading water anymore? I'd love to hear in the chat if there's anyone that has any comments on that. And again, from you, Josh, but what are those things that it's really the strategic action, I think it comes down to?
Yeah, I think we've always, and it's things I've been saying to my staff for the last few years, is that we want to try and be proactive rather than reactive. We want to free up your processing power as an employee so we can give you time to think. When you can think, you can operate better. You're not weighed down by your tasks and your processes. You're freed up to be creative, to be innovative. We're only as good as the people that are employed within our business. And we're only as good as the amount that we can free these people up to think rather than to do. And I think that's been super powerful for us. I see that there's so Kim has just asked, could we flip the director tab on the? I don't know if that's possible, but
absolutely,
This was huge for us because we needed buy-in from the rest of the directors. There's 5 directors on the board at Clifton. All of a sudden, I became obsessed with Power BI from a conversation when we did the first Microsoft ad, where someone said to me, "Oh, you should put some stuff into Power BI," and I felt a bit silly. I was like, I don't know what Power BI is. I've never heard of it. And he's like, it's this thing that, can handle data and present it to you nicely. And I really thought that we were too small to benefit from Power BI. So tried to push it to the rest of the board. People are like, well, yeah, there's loads of things that do that. We already have some reporting. And I think this director's dashboard really brought it home for our board, where we were able to, put this real, the idea was to present less as well. Dashboards can be really, it can be really tempting to put lots of information on there. You have to rein me in a few times on that. And just to keep it simple, ask 1 or 2 simple questions and get really powerful answers. Right, Greg?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just going to dive into the last slide here. So this was really great. I thank you so much for listening, just for the comments in the chat, and just wanted to bring it back to sort of those two scenarios, the treading water and being dialed in. And maybe you didn't realize there's a better way. No one really does this knowingly. We've all been there. And I just really hope this cracked the door a bit, and just that there's a better way of doing things. So here's our contact information, and I would be thrilled if this even inspires even just one of you to take the next step and get dialed in with Power BI, just like Josh and the team at Clifton have. So I love hearing from you. I'd love any feedback on this, and I know that Josh is super keen to chat about the work we've done together, and you could reach out to him as well. So last thing, Josh and I again will be joining a few others in a panel discussion tomorrow, where we'd love to answer any further questions you have. And it'd be great to have you all back for that. I'd love that. And I think we have a bit of time here, and be glad to answer any questions that might have come up.
Hey guys, man, dude, you guys rocked the house. There was so much good stuff there. So hey folks, first thing I want to do is I want to kick off the poll, and I would also like you to share in the chat box, once you have participated in the poll, tell us the one thing you have learned or found valuable in this session. And I know there were so many things to choose from, but what this does is it helps cement that for you. So because you're writing, what gets written gets remembered. by writing about it. Not only, of course, you give great feedback to us and Greg and Josh, but it's going to help you hold on to that message, retain it better, and hopefully act upon it. So definitely participate in the poll and then share us that one thing. And I'm going to put in the chat box, I'm also going to put both the panel discussions where I would encourage everybody to join. And again, that's going to be a Zoom meeting. So yeah, we're thinking more intimate, casual, smaller group, and have more of a rich dialogue, listen to everybody else. And I always say that the smartest person in the room is the room itself, right? So yeah, hear from all of you. So panel discussion, I just put that in the chat window. So the link to register for the coffee/manufacturing panel discussion. And I think Greg and Josh both are going to be there. And of course, you can also reach out and connect with them on LinkedIn. Terrific. And again, I'm going to leave the poll open just for a few more seconds. Folks, if you haven't voted yet, just to make sure you put something in the poll. And I know I wrote down a lot of questions. So if you have questions for our speakers, put that in the Q&A box. All right, perfect. So, okay, great. So we're back at this. So let's see. I'll take my favorite. So I definitely had a question about API. I know you said it was challenging for me. The words were like, oh, API and with pagination. If anybody has had to work with API, that's the biggest wall you hit into, because a lot of APIs, they only return like 100 rows or 1,000 rows, and you have to, do that. But Dan is asking, besides using Python, is there another way to connect an API to Power BI? Yeah, so advise words for Dan or others.
Sure, I can answer that. I can tell you about the things that we've tried. This won't be an all-inclusive list, but so initially we were trying to connect through Power BI directly using Power Query. Struggled there with the OAuth 2 type connections where there's a call, there's a whole back and forth, and there's a I forget what it's called, like a app secret that has to be passed back and forth. At the time, this is probably almost a year ago, but we were trying to do that directly in Power Query. So the next step was actually through a recommendation from Greg Nash, Power BI expert down in Australia. He's done quite a bit of connecting to Xero in particular, and he recommended Power Automate. That would be a slick way of doing that, and we definitely had success doing it that way. And by the way, I was working very closely with her name's Ruth down in St. Louis. She's helped me with all of this stuff, so I'm by no means the expert on this. I'm definitely relying on her, and I have a great team that's helping me with some of these difficult things. But building out in Power Automate, we definitely had some success there, but I think we moved to Python basically because it was a little more lean. Like we found that we could just use the Windows task scheduler, and it didn't break as often is what we were finding. So I don't know if that helps.
Great.
Ruth, I think sorry, Avi, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah,
I think Ruth did a presentation at one of the local Power BI meetups. I don't know if it was recorded, but she did a whole presentation on this whole API connecting, the kind of the journey we went through. So I could see if that's available.
Love that. And of course, folks, I mean, we can dive deeper in the panel discussion session. So
sure.
Yeah, right. So, but I think the message there is that, yep, there are ways that you can get around. And I'll be remiss if I didn't share my hack, which I shared, I think, in my session yesterday, which is that a lot of times people get stuck at the connecting stage. And I'll say, just bloody export the data and build the proof of concept first, because otherwise you're investing so much time, money, effort into building connector when you don't even know what the results could be or is going to look like. Is anybody going to care about it, right? So build the POC just by exporting it. Meanwhile, you can take the time to build the connector. Great, Josh, thanks for answering the question. I'm just going to read it out for other members here. So Hugo was asking about, does a coffee roaster have some interface to capture data? And Josh said, yes, we do have hardware that connects to the roasting software called Cropster. And David is asking about using forecasting, machine learning for even more accurate prediction. And Josh said that they are in that process too. Kind of a side note, I had a question, but Greg, what do you think? I'm thinking that over time we can collect and publish a book of Joshisms. And one good candidate was the Scooby-Doo mode. I don't know who came up with the Wheel of Doom. That was brilliant as well. And of course, some of the other things he said. So I think that's, guys, look for that in your nearest bookstore. we'll put a picture of Scooby-Doo on there. Great. So Eric is asking about, so I noticed that too, when you were showing the Power BI demo, there was a cool, neat little section of the Power BI standard visuals, but you had a set of custom visuals. And especially like the calendar one. Tell us about some of the custom visuals that you have used or have worked really well for you for this engagement or these dashboards.
Yeah, so probably some of the ones, I think the main ones, as a whole, I try to not delve into it too much. I think
hey, I'm the same way. I mean, if it's my default is always the standard visuals, and of course, even that my default is a very, very limited set, right? The text space, column, bar chart, simple is great. But yeah, tell us about some of the ones you have found useful.
Yeah, and I will say some of these probably were from me testing them out. Like here we have the chiclet slicer. That one's pretty powerful. You can bind images to the face of the slicer. It can be kind of powerful that way. And I think another one that I'm using quite a bit here is this. I didn't use it in this case. Sorry, it's this card with states by OKViz. This is a great one. Very powerful in terms of being able to present these KPI cards. I think I've used it elsewhere on this dashboard actually. Whoops. Yeah, these ones are the OKViz KPI card. Within the mapping world, I've spent a lot of time going deep in the mapping, and so Mapbox is super powerful. I love it. Lately, been using the default Azure map quite a bit as well, but I think a lot of my reports have Mapbox visuals.
Yeah.
Definitely the Zebra BI charts are amazing for financial reporting. Use those quite a bit. And I think, anything by the OKViz guys, I mean, they're phenomenal. I'd say those are trying to hit the high points. Those are probably the main ones that I use.
Love it. Hey, that's awesome. Great. I'm gonna put that in there as well. Love it. So I must say that the analogy of the two types of leaders, like treading water and dialed in, really resonated with me. I mean, of course, as a small business owner, but again, when I look at my clients, and I think that is so. You guys have heard me. I talk a lot about mindset, and I always say that it's not a switch. It's like, oh yay, I have positive growth mindset. Now I'm all set, right? I mean, it's something you do every day, every moment, right? Something like that. So I think that leadership is about the same. And I think Josh talked about that too, man. So I just want to say I love that. But also, so accept the fact that, you're going to have your treading water days and dialed in days. But you know what they say, right? I mean, you look back and it's like, well, if there were more dialed in days and treading water days, you're doing good. But of course, I remember the time in Microsoft where most of the days felt like treading water, right? I mean, it was I mean, you talk about fighting fires. I was thinking about sometimes you feel like overwhelmed. You feel like you can't breathe. You feel like you're drowning. You're overwhelmed. It's just not a good life. So but of course, there's a way out, and it doesn't happen in day one, as you guys saw this journey. And Ray, I love that part where you took us through the journey and say, yep, this is where you can get to. But so there's hope there. Thanks for sharing that. So let's see. Let me see if there are any other comments kind of came in. Anthony mentioned Icon Map is awesome as well.
Saw one there from Benjamin Matthews there in the chat. He had a question, how empowering was it for the wider coffee team to see the data and the results of Clifton Coffee? That'd be a good one.
Yeah,
Josh there.
Yeah, I think the biggest win for me was working alongside our head roaster. Tim, if he had the chance, then he would probably plot out every single roast curve by hand, graph, pen, and pencil. He's just that sort of artisan. He's great like that, and a genius when it comes to roast it. So I think he would have. For me, he was the hardest person to win over, as we were thinking about, let's look at a computer screen to present all this information now. But I think Greg probably vouched for this, is that when we set him up with Teams, we gave him access to the dashboards, and he started slicing and dicing. I think Greg's inbox was just inundated with questions, because when you get answers, it just generates more questions, right? And then you can start to dig deeper and ask more and dig deeper. And I think that for Tim was super empowering. I think also for even new starters, as I said, we're a growing business. For us to be able to, it's really easy to just tell people what is going on in your business, but it's even more powerful to show them. And that's also been great when we've been showing people what's been happening in the industry, how things are, how things work, how things feel throughout the week. Using these visuals, I think really have helped empower people to all be dialed in. So we've been trying to attack all the waste in our business, whether that's in process, predominantly, and these have been super helpful with that.
Totally. Just to piggyback off that, we have a usage report where we can see over time, who's using which reports, and it's great. No one wants to build a report that no one looks at. So I think it's been really neat. This is particularly why we focused in on the roastery, is that a lot of the, from a few different sources, people are looking at these reports on a regular basis. So Tim being one of them, it's neat to see that.
I logged in on I think it was yesterday to check on the usage report, because I'm always curious to see as well, like, how can I empower our team to get the most out of the dashboards that we've built. And for the first time this week, I wasn't the top of the list in terms of using usage. I'd been knocked off the pedestal. So I guess that was a humbling experience, but also a super powerful one to just say, like, actually people are using this tool more than me to benefit, which is I'd say my job complete there. I can just let people run with it and probably take it to an even better place than we've started with now as well.
Yeah, man, that's so beautiful. I mean, I'm thinking about, like, when I see the kind of the members in our program, I mean, they go far beyond than where I've gone, and it's so satisfying. Hey, Greg and Josh, thank you so much. This was not only very educational, I learned a lot, I picked up a lot, but really fun as well. So really enjoyed your session. Thank you so much.